It's May 20th, 2025. We're continuing our discussion collection, or Outside the Class series. It's this series from the Bible Project. Covers the entire TaNaK, right? The Old Testament. All source videos. They're set up for your review on TheDustyFeet.com in the Outside the Class section. Because the intent of Outside the Class is for you to listen to that in-class lecture first. We try to keep these to just about 15 minutes. Want to make them easy to catch up on. So we're on a quest. Scroll by scroll, book by book, a journey through this collection, but maybe with a fun and maybe different twist. Our hope with the Dusty Feed is to foster discussion and help build and support communities. If you are not already connected to a community or just want to share and interact, this community has 4 primary ways to interact. 1. DustyFeet.com. That's our primary place to find everything. You are always free to comment. 2. Facebook, at TheDustyFeet. These videos and other videos are also available for comment and discussion. And 3. We have a Discord channel. The invite link is there below. Be vocal, be written, be loving. And 4, and as always, you are welcome to send an email to bob@TheDustyFeet.com. These places, they will be moderated, and guidelines will be set to ensure healthy, safe discussion. And as always on the Dusty Feet, this is a place where we can safely explore the endless ways of God and the interconnection of His creation. Belief understandings may be challenged, divine misunderstandings may exist, and traditional teachings might falter as we pursue connection, context, and community with God and each other here in an environment of grace and love. And before we forget, if you find these kinds of podcasts useful, it's when you click that subscribe button. Those reminders, they just help you. But also, if you think these might be useful to other people, that is when you click that like button, because that is how YouTube chooses to share these to more people if they wish. So in this series, again, like I said, we're going to cover the entire TaNaK, the Old Testament. But we're going to do it in the Hebrew Scriptures order. It's the original order of this entire collection. You need to remember that the videos that we're going to be discussing are just the tip of an iceberg. They're part of a learning series, again, that I highly recommend. They can all be found on the Bible Project website. Because we're going to ask many questions about all kinds of things. Answers? We'll see. So Samuel, first scroll. This is our part 5. So here's one of those parts that I want us to remember. It's like putting a page in a bookmark. Remember, I want us to remember this point because if we knew something that we knew before, we get to this point, and one of the questions we would be asking it is, how can that happen? That's why I want to mark this, because we're going to get to this story later on. We're going to have another encounter with the ark, right? That's going to have an intriguing event that's tied to how this happens too. But if we have this marker in the book, then we can ask ourselves later, well, what about back there? So we begin chapter 5, right? Now, the Philistines took the ark of God and they brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. Then the Philistines took the ark of God. They brought it to the house of Dagon. They set it by Dagon. So the Philistines had the ark. They brought it to the house of one of their gods. They dropped it off next to Dagon. Well, suffice to say that God has mixed a little bit of judgment and a little bit of his sense of humor, right? When the Ashdodites arose early the next morning, behold, Dagon had fallen on his face before the ground, before the ark of the Lord. So they took Dagon, set him back in his place again. But when they rose early the next morning, behold, Dagon had fallen on his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord, and the head of Dagon and both palms of his hands were cut off on the threshold. Only the trunk of Dagon was left to him. Therefore, neither the priests of Dagon nor all who enter Dagon's house tread on that threshold of Dagon in Ashdod to this day. Now the hand of the Lord was heavy on the Ashdodites. He ravaged them, and he smote them with tumors, both Ashdod and its territories. When the men of Ashdod saw it, they said, "The ark of the God of Israel must not remain with us, for his hand is severe on us and on Dagon, our God." So it's interesting, right? The people around the temple, they decided to take the ark. They decided to give it to somebody else. Not only did that not prove helpful, it also helped spread the disease because they got was really akin to a plague from Egypt. So they gathered all the lords of the Philistines to them and asked, "What are we going to do with the ark of the God of Israel?" And they said, "Let the ark of the God of Israel be brought around to Gath." So they brought the ark of the God of Israel around. After they brought it around, the hand of the Lord was against the city with a great confusion. He smote the men of the city, both young and old, so that tumors broke out on them. So they sent the ark of the God to Ekron. And as the ark of God came to Ekron, and the Ekronites cried out, saying, "They brought us the ark of the God of Israel around to kill us. They want to kill us and our people." So the Philistines and their leaders, they realized this was a giant mistake. After all of that, they needed to return the ark. Death, tumors. It's not a good time for those people. I think their response is typical for someone who encounters a more powerful God, right? They believe they met a more powerful God. They respond in a way that expresses their need, right, to appease this more powerful God that they've offended, that they've crossed. So yeah, this is a mess. The ark's been with them for 7 months, and they're saying, "What do we do?" So these leaders, they go to the priest and the diviners, and they say, "The ark, tell us how to send it back." So they devised a plan, send the ark back with what they called a guilt offering. "We were wrong. Here's our offer." So remember I mentioned that we have some like unusual word, things we have trouble picturing, understanding, and we have a little nibble of this here, right? We have tumors, right? We have mice. I've heard some discussion that actually goes more towards the tumors were boils. I'll bite on the discussion, but it's a different word here. So it just draws, what do we think? We have a different view with what we think today with our mental vision of tumors. Like I said, I wonder what this is. And here's why, right? So they decided that they wanted to pay in gold. And they say, well, we're going to have these many gold representations of our tumors and gold representations of our mice. And we're going to put them in a box. And we're going to send them back with the ark. Then it gets more interesting. These particular priests and these diviners, they come up with this creative plan. Because it gives them an out. Either way, right? They would look correct either way it happened, right? Because they said, if you send away the ark of God of Israel, do not send it away empty, but you shall surely return to him a guilt offering. Then you will be healed, and it will be known to you why his hand is not removed from you. And they said, what shall be the guilt offering which we shall return to him? And they said, 5 golden tumors and 5 golden mice, according to the number of the lords of the Philistines. For one plague was on all of you and your lords. So you shall make likenesses of your tumors and likenesses of your mice, the ones that ravage the land, and you shall give glory to the God of Israel. Perhaps he will ease his hand on you and your gods and your land. Why then did you harden your hearts as the Egyptians and the Pharaoh hardened them? When he had severely dealt with them, they did not allow the people to go, and they didn't want them to depart. Now, therefore, prepare a new cart, and 2 milch cows on which there has never been a yoke. Hitch the cows to the cart, take their calves home away from them, then take the ark of the Lord, place it on the cart. Put the articles of gold which you return to him as a guilt offering in a box by its side. Send it away that it may go. Oh, and no, that's not a mispronunciation. It's not a milk cow. It's a milch cow. If you look it up, the word kind of hints at naked, right? So think maybe it might mean that it's unencumbered, that it's never seen or been used for any labor, right? It's been totally unladen. And as they said, it never had a yoke on it. So it's a cow that's just never seen burden. That's another picture to add to our collective memories of things we think we might know, like tumors. So that's just, I was just at a small session with people who were talking about challenging questions in Scripture. And one of them was, does God harden hearts? And there's a struggle with that. And this is addressing the central position, kind of what they were talking about. Because as we see here, their understanding leans more in this direction, right? There's more to talk about it if we want to go somewhere and talk about it, about the hardening of Pharaoh, right? But if we see here and you get why do you harden your heart as the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened their hearts? Why are you choosing to be so stubborn? Why are you choosing to lean towards your own proclivity? Your proclivity for control, for power. I guess so that's just another thought on hardening of hearts and God letting us go in the direction that we're already inclined, that we're already going. I think the scariest part is that he chooses not to be involved, as in God chooses not to be involved. He's not going to intervene. He's going to let you go your own way. Do your own thing. And yeah, they're going their own way. And these priests, they developed this interesting little plan, this test. Oh, and it's creative. I fully agree. What intrigues me a bit is that God plays along a little as he says, okay, if that's what you're going to use for your test, then I can make sure that it happens the way that will show that, yeah, I am the reason for this, for the plague, for the death. And you'll see it. So watch. 1 Samuel 6:9. Watch. If it goes up by the way of its own territory to Beth Shemesh, then he has done this great evil. But if not, then we'll know that it was not by his hand and that struck us. And what did just happened by chance. So the cart and the cows, they go on the road and they split and they take the path to Beth Shemesh. Yeah? Well, there's people working in the field. They see this cart being pulled by some cows, and on the back of the cart, the Ark of the Covenant with a box alongside. Then what follows is an interesting, kind of uncomfortable story. It can be confusing, be troubling. But now it's back with the people of God. And they have been given instructions on how to handle this and the direction on how to treat the ark. Want to know that? Go back and see the tabernacle building instructions for details. Even when they attempt to do something that they think is good, they still haven't followed God's instructions. But that's what got us to this whole trouble in the first place, right? If we wouldn't even be here if we'd have just listened to God. But like I said, It's a little part of this story. It's messy. We have some men who appear to be a little over curious. One could say zealous. They take a peek into the ark. I think one of the troubling parts is that it seems to have a ripple effect. Because how many people can look into an ark? And yet, how many people ended up dying? 6:19, right? He struck down some of the men of Beth Shemesh because they had looked into the ark of the Lord. And he struck down all of the people, 50,070 men. And the people mourned because the Lord had struck the people with a great slaughter. God wasn't happy. You know, sometimes when we look at Scripture, at times because when we're not aware what to look for, that maybe a phrase that's in it, it's hiding in plain sight, something there that's we're just not noticing. Maybe it's something that we should be noticing. Maybe it's something that maybe we should be looking at. So when we start our next episode, we're going to start discussing things that can hide in plain sight. Maybe they're not hidden. We just don't realize what we're looking at and could or should maybe be looking at. So thanks for being with us tonight on another discussion episode on the Scroll of Samuel on the Dusty Feet.